Back in the good old days, before most of you had hair on your chest and the word feminism wasn't completely annihilated by mainstream media, some controllers used to be anti-stick drift machines, surprisingly. They utilized the Hall effect, which directly combats two of the three main causes of stick drift in most modern controllers. And you may be asking yourself, hey, why don't we use that shit anymore? And if you use your brain, what is the answer to pretty much anything that happens ever in modern society that is run by all the corporations that you love? That's right, money. And companies will make far more money if they sell you an unreliable product, which is why most controllers nowadays use carbon film potentiometers. Far less reliable, far less accurate, far more prone to making people buy more of the same product.
All you care about is money. This town deserves a better class of criminals.
Gulikit, the company responsible for the weird-ass controller name that right next to me, they decided to take a different route of business for their controller. Instead of being an unreliable sell machine that's supposed to be sold over and over again, it's supposed to be the most reliable controller there ever was. This is the King Kong Pro 2. It's a $70 Switch controller, and it doesn't have any pro controller features like paddles. It doesn't claim to make you the best player you've ever been. It claims to have fallen from God's throne on the 10th level of heaven all the way down to the hellhole that you and I exist in to fix our stick drift problems. Because apparently, this thing has stick drift proof thumbsticks and ABXY buttons that are also rather interesting. So it's one of those videos where, yes, they sent me the product. I'm brutally honest no matter what. People think that because literally every other tech channel has mostly biased reviews when it comes to sponsored products or gifted products, that I do too. And that is a perfectly rational way of thinking. Actually, keep thinking that way. My reviews aren't like that. Proof's in the bricks. Let's get started. The Gulikit King Kong Pro 2, holy shit that name, has many features. Some of those features include 6-axis gyro, which most all Switch controllers include, but they don't include autopilot gaming, otherwise known as the AI that fucking plays for you. And we will be talking about it later. It's basically just advanced macros. What the hell are macros? And while all of those features are rather cool, I think the focus of a review on a controller that makes these claims should be focused on these claims. Gulikit claims that their thumbsticks have no drifting ever with their new patented electromagnetic thumbsticks, which are Hall effect thumbsticks modeled like the carbon film potentiometer thumbsticks we've been using in all of our modern controllers. Weirdly, the Hall effect has been around for literally ever, and Hall effect thumbsticks have actually existed in controllers at chance points in time. It's just that we don't have them anymore for the reasons stated earlier. And you may be wondering why I'm holding one of these thumbsticks in my hand. That's because they literally sent, I'm dead serious, they're so proud of this super ultra reliable controller, they sent out one of your ABXY buttons and an extra thumbstick, both specifically for this review as well as others on YouTube. If they're this proud of this controller, that makes me feel very good about it. And you'll notice this is a common theme throughout the rest of this video. No one does that shit. And no one does any of the shit that this company does, especially at a $70 price point. So when someone says, hey, this product can't be this cheap because they wouldn't make money, look at that shit. Now, the Hall effect sensors. Not only are they more reliable than your average controller thumbstick made from carbon film potentiometers would be, they're also far more accurate. These can exist with little to no dead zone, and in fact, Gulikit went ahead and implemented a no dead zone mode, where the dead zones on the thumbsticks are completely removed, therefore making them the most sensitive sticks I've ever had the pleasure of coming into contact with. They're absolutely amazing. One quick side note on accuracy, control freaks actually do fit on these thumbsticks, thankfully. The thumbsticks by themselves feel absolutely amazing, but the control freak option is there if you want it. With the no dead zone mode enabled, these thumbsticks feel extremely accurate, but more importantly, they feel consistent. A comparison off the top of my head I'll make is to the PowerA Fusion Pro 2, which I've been using recently for an upcoming re-review, and even though it has paddles and all the competitive features that should make me more consistent on average with my aim, I am actually far less consistent. So accuracy isn't a worry. In fact, it's an A+ in my opinion. Here is the big problem though. Got two issues. Number one, and it's the biggest problem with this controller, and I fucking hate it. Without no dead zone mode enabled, This controller has the worst out-of-the-box dead zone I have ever seen in my entire life. Micro adjustments are physically impossible with a dead zone that is this extreme. With the no dead zone mode enabled, this dead zone goes away. So therefore, since there's a way to counter it, it should be okay, right? Not exactly. Earlier in the video, you heard me say that Hall effect sensors combat 2 of the 3 main causes of stick drift. 2 of the 3 main causes of stick drift come from the carbon film potentiometers they're made out of. The 3rd cause of stick drift is loosening tension, which comes from the little spring inside of the thumbstick that recenters the stick. Over time, that spring loosens. And anyone who's owned or even used an Elite controller will know, loose thumbsticks do not feel good. The thumbsticks on the Elite Series 2 loosen up quite dramatically. And that little bit of play in the thumbstick, when you just move it around a little bit on no dead zone mode, that's pretty significant. So the lack of dead zones may end up causing stick drift in the very far future when the spring is more worn out and the thumbstick moves around a little bit more on its own. However, by the time it does happen, it will have been well over a year, I would have imagined so. That depends on Gulikit's claims being true, that these actually are high-quality Hall effect joysticks. If they are high-quality Hall effect joysticks, I wouldn't actually expect this no dead zone mode to be an issue because of loosening thumbsticks. At least not in any time frame that is comparable to that of a stock Xbox, PlayStation, or Nintendo Pro controller. So based on the past performance of Hall effect joysticks and Gulikit's claims, I think this is a very recommendable controller just to test if these things actually do work, because I think Call of Duty players on PC would have a field day with this thing. Thumbsticks that are resistant to stick drift and ABXY buttons rated for 50. That can't be right. This is an even crazier claim in my opinion, because these are membrane as shit. I don't know if they're rated for 50 million clicks. I don't fucking know. You'll have to test them on your own. We'll all have to test these controllers on our own to see if they are. Unfortunately, one of the only reliability issues I've seen with this controller comes back to these ABXY buttons. People say that they stick sometimes. Luckily, this seems to have been a temporary issue with the very first batch of King Kong Pro 2 controllers. So stuck ABXY buttons shouldn't be happening with your controller anymore, but keep in mind, you got a 1-year warranty. So if that does happen, send the bitch back. Or if you're someone who's controller savvy and likes to take shit apart, go ahead and give it a shot. A button sticking usually isn't a big problem. If a button's sticking, usually it's because there's something in there making it stick and you can get it out. Double clicking buttons, on the other hand, is something entirely different, and this is something Gulikit's trying to combat, it seems. I'll give him props. Don't know if it's actually true or not. We'll see. If both of these claims are true, that these buttons are rated for 50 million clicks, and those are stick drift proof thumbsticks for the most part, this controller literally rivals Superman. Those claims to reliability are quite monumental, and they aren't even half the story of this controller, weirdly. It's got a ton of little features, like a bunch of input modes, X input, DINput, 2.4 gigahertz specifically for the Switch, and Bluetooth for iOS and Android or PC, if you're a douchebag like myself. For $70, they didn't even skip out on like stupid shit. Like, this is a fully rubberized shell all the way around, and it has a carrying case. This basically feels like a stock controller version of the Elite Series 2, and that's just quality of life shit. What the hell is the excuse for any other controller to have a lackluster feature set? I think of all the controllers I reviewed, the profit margins on this one are probably the slimmest, and that means the most to me. Not that you're profiting as little as possible, but that you're making a product that's both worth every dollar and also doesn't cost a shit ton of money for what it is. You know, I'll hear a comment or two about this probably, about there's no paddles or buttons. What it doesn't have in terms of competitive performance, it tries its best to make up for. I mean, it does have adjustable trigger dead zones, which are kind of like trigger stops, but not really. You also can change thumbstick sensitivities, which are probably pretty useful for people who are playing with the no dead zone mode. But then you have some very unique competitive based features, and this is something I have a very hard stance on. I don't care if it's a sponsored product. I don't even care if I'm getting paid to say something about the product, which I've never gotten paid for any of these videos. I can't condone mods, they're for complete pussies. This controller has rapid fire and gyro aim assist. How? I'm not the biggest fan of stuff like that, you guys know that. But there's also this feature that's kind of like macros, but it's not. Autopilot gaming, I'm gonna explain it in its most basic terms. You press the record button, you do a bunch of action with the controller, the thumbsticks, the buttons, whatever, and then you hit the save button. You can do this for up to 10 minutes of gameplay. And then whenever you press that button, it will literally act out all the actions, all the thumbstick movements, all the button presses that you did. It's kind of creepy. I don't really have too much of a use for this, but I'm pretty sure people will find a use for this, like some repetitive, annoying, like action that you have to do over and over and over and over and over again, you know, for hours on end, farming or grinding something. I can see people using it for something like that. Either way, people are gonna find ways to use this and they'll comment about it. So please let me know in the comment section below, what would you use this feature for? You know what the coolest thing about all that is, at least in my opinion? Not a single piece of software for any of it. I'll put it on screen here so you can screenshot it and it's a lot easier. I'll make a little graphic or whatever. Everything you're seeing is basically done through function buttons on the controller. You press the center button, which is the settings button or the function button or whatever, and whatever other button on the controller, and pretty much every single action on the controller gives you a different feature. So there's no software involved. However, there is some firmware online that you can find for firmware updates so that you can keep up to date with all the things Gulikit does to the controller. They change a bunch of shit with the controller all the time. I'll put the latest one in the description for those who are curious. There's always a dedicated negative portion of my video. Fortunately, it's pretty short. You want to hear it? Okay, here we go. Number 1, where the hell's the headphone jack? Apparently, a lot of Switch controllers don't have these. Bullshit. Change that. Number 2, reliability issues. There are none. I talked about it earlier. ABXY buttons on occasion get stuck. I think that's actually it. I don't think I've seen another reliability complaint besides that. But yeah, if that does happen, 1-year warranty, there you go. Use it. So I don't own a Nintendo Switch, which is step 1 in a Switch controller review. Whoops. As a PC player, as a controller player in general, this is a very, very interesting device. It's just not compatible with half my audience, which is a bunch of Xbox children, which I understand. Okay. Get an adapter. There you go. To be honest, if we're not thinking about the feature set that really matters, which is the reliability, as a Switch controller on its own, it's still a very interesting product. You know, it's a carrying case, rubberized coating, removable thumbsticks that Gulikit is going to be sending or selling other thumbstick kits on their website sometime, so you know, keep an eye out for those. You got a bunch of software features, you got gyro, aim assist, and AI, a bunch of cool shit here. But the reliability factors alone would make this controller a highly recommendable product, but the fact that they just went so above and beyond is kind of crazy to me. At $70, I really just don't see a downside. Even if it did end up breaking on you in some very weird way, you have a warranty to cover you. The feature set, like the AI, make this controller a ton of fun to use. It has some really unique features you get to experiment around with. It's a fun controller regardless of the reliability claims, but the claims of reliability and the fact that this is using Hall effect sensors makes this like the most recommendable product to have ever been reviewed on my channel. Last review I did of the Victrix Gambit, which all in all is an amazing controller for the money. It's just not that reliable and feels like shit. This is the polar opposite. It feels amazing. And it's also claims to be like the most reliable of all the controllers to have ever done it ever. So if you'd like one, they'll be in the description, and I will definitely be doing some videos in the future with this thing. I think it is by far, bar none, the most interesting device I've reviewed, simply because it solves one of the biggest issues I've been bitching about since I was 6 years old. Gulikit was a huge help here. I appreciate them sending me the device out. I would have bought it either way. And reviewed it either way, but I appreciate it. And I really do hope you guys enjoyed me being honest, even though I know sometimes I'm a little bit much. Anyways, there you go. The first true anti-stick drift controller on this channel. E-swap controller doesn't count. You threw the thumbsticks away when they died. This one, the thumbsticks don't die. Hopefully, anyways. Speaking of the E-swaps, I will be looking at the E-swap S controller next, because Thrustmaster was nice enough to be like, hey man, would you like a race car steering wheel? Ridiculously excited for that review. You should be too. Get excited. I love you guys so much, and I hope to see you guys in my next review of something that's probably not going to be as reliable as this. Peace.